variety of very important bills today on some very good subjects that we need to get through. Appreciate you all being here. To help facilitate today's proceedings, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping rules that'll help us, again, to facilitate our hearing today. One, if you can make sure to ensure that your name, as written on your Zoom profile, comports with what you've submitted testimony under. That helps our staff to be able to highlight you and to find you. So if you can rename yourself if it's different from what you submitted testimony under, that would be very helpful. Also, if you can keep yourself muted until I call you, that would also be helpful audio-wise to ensure that we're able to hear testifiers presenting their testimony. Additionally, we do, because we have so many bills to get through in CPC, kindly ask you to keep your testimony to 2 minutes. Once your 2 minutes have expired, I'll gently ask you to start to summarize your testimony, but that ensures that we're able to hear from everybody and to get through our agenda. Lastly, I'd also like to ask for everyone's help and assistance in ensuring that one of the things that I think makes Hawaii so special is the perpetuation of the aloha spirit, that we extend each other grace and aloha in today's hearing as we express our different and important perspectives on these myriad bills. With that, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, my thanks to each and every one of you for being here. I'd like to ask the committee's indulgence because we have students who are wishing to testify on the vaping bill. I would like to take HB 1570 out of order and move it to the front of the agenda so that we're able to accommodate some of our youngest participants in democracy today. So first off, members, we'll start with HB 1570 relating to youth vaping. And this has many parts to it. Various reporting requirements for the Department of Health, the Department of the Attorney General, as well as making substantial changes to nicotine products and vaping and establishing a ban. Let's see. Okay, with that, we'll start off with our first testifier, Department of Education in support. Sorry, I guess they're not here. Next, we have the Department of the Attorney General in opposition.
Sorry, was that the Leadership Institute for the Department of Education?
No, I'll call you next, Reed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Richard, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair Johansson, Vice Chair Kitagawa, and members of the committee. I am Deputy Attorney General Rich Stacy with the Tobacco Enforcement Unit. We are charged with MSA enforcement, the Tobacco Master Settlement Agreement. As indicated in our testimony, we do oppose this version of the bill. In our testimony, we pointed out several concerns, including single subject title issues. There are sections of the bill involving tobacco settlement special funds, which are derived from the Master Settlement Agreement. And to be clear, that was created in 1998 and involves cigarette and roll your own tobacco only. It has nothing to do with vaping. So as much as we are concerned with the vaping problem, when you tie in the MSA to this, it just does not work. And it's also a single subject title problem. In addition, for the Department of the Attorney General to provide, I think there's sort of a massive, we would have to track every device and vape liquid that comes into the state and make reports on it. There are no additional resources for that. That would stretch our resources. And as I've testified before and met with you, Chair, what we do with diligent enforcement and master settlement allows Hawaii to keep receiving millions of dollars from its annual payments. So adding responsibilities without additional resources puts that at risk. There's another issue in there that was in the prior draft involving putting administrative fines into a penal code, which just doesn't work. And I am available to respond to any questions. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Deputy Attorney General Stacy. Next, we have the Principal and Residence DOE Leadership Institute, Reed Kuba, in support.
So, Chair Johansson, Vice Chair Kitagawa, and the members of Consumer Protection and Commerce Committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. I represent 108 other principals from across the state that support the banning of flavored tobacco products and support HB 150. I just have one comment in addition to our written testimony, that when I was a principal at a middle school, pretty much all the students vaping, and that's all of them. They tried it because they thought it was safer than smoking cigarettes. And it was because of the sweet, fruity flavors and the smell. They get hooked in elementary or middle school, and then it mainly gets worse from that point. Other than that comment, we stand on our testimony and we'll stand by for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Principal Kuba. And I'm told that this is your first time testifying. You did a great job, and welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Consumer Protection and Commerce. Next, we have the Department of Health Health Resources Administration Division in opposition.
Thank you, Chair Johansson and members of the committee. I'm Lola Irvin, representing Director Char for the Department of Health. The department respectfully opposes HB 1570 HD1 in its current form. The department supports the intent of the original measure, HB 1570, which addresses the youth vaping epidemic to protect Hawaii's next generation from lifelong addiction to tobacco use. And as the principal stated earlier, because of the candy and fruit flavored products that have nicotine that are highly addictive, we do support HB 1570 in its original form. But with the House Draft 1, the department is opposing it because the amendments are unreasonable and make the current version untenable. So thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony, and I'll be here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lola. We also have the Hawaii State Teachers Association in support.
Hi, Mitzi Higa speaking for Osa Tui Jr., our president of Hawaii State Teachers Association. We're in support, but we want to make it clear. What we're in support of is holding the companies accountable and banning the flavors that attract our students to vape. We don't agree with the amendments that are in there that added all these reporting mechanisms that we feel is unnecessary. What has been proven that attract students to vaping are the flavors. This is why in 2009, FDA banned flavors from regular cigarettes for this same reason. So as a state, since the federal isn't doing it right now, let's ban these flavors, because clearly that is what is attracting our students and hooking them. And once they're hooked, the nicotine keeps them there. We want to help them. Let's hold these companies accountable. It's not more reporting mechanisms that need to go on. It's banning the flavors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mitzi. We also have Valerie Chang with the Hawaii COPD Coalition offering comments.
Hi, this is Valerie Chang with the Hawaii COPD Coalition. Thank you, Chair Johansson, Vice Chair Kitagawa, and members of the Committee for Consumer Protection and Commerce. I join with all the other people that have testified that I really, really liked HB 1570 because it did what, as originally written, what we need our state to do. All the amendments just thwart all of those goals, and we really don't need more people that have lung disease. We have already over 46,000 people with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. We don't want the next generation to have this. It is a really miserable condition. I watch people every day, all the time, suffering because they can't get their next breath. I urge you to please amend 1570 to go back to its original form with the 5-page preamble that explains why this is so urgently needed, and that it be passed as it was originally written, because it was really carefully drafted to actually meet the needs of our state. And I thank you so much for listening. I'm available for any comments or questions.
Thank you very much, Valerie. We also have Nicole Wu with the Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks offering comments.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We switched from support of the original version of this bill to comments due to concerns about the same amendments that have been mentioned by other testifiers. We certainly support the intent to tackle the youth vaping epidemic by banning flavored tobaccos, but we are concerned that all the amendments in this version undermines and distracts from the original intent, and that many of these amendments have not been proven to be effective. While we know that's what was in the original bill, have been proven to be effective ways to reduce youth vaping and youth tobacco use. So we also request that you restore this bill to its original form. Thank you for letting me testify.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Do we have Tim Andrews with Americans for Tax Reform in opposition? No, we do not. Do we have Guy Bentley with Reason Foundation offering comments?
Yes, you do, Chair. Thank you so much for allowing me the time to speak to you today. Last year, the Food and Drug Administration authorized an e-cigarette as, quote, appropriate for the public protection of public health for the first time. And the FDA is currently reviewing all e-cigarettes to determine whether they are, in fact, appropriate for the protection of public health. The possible danger in banning certain e-cigarettes before the FDA has concluded its review, according to the International Tobacco Control Policy Evaluation Project, is that many adults who have used these products to get off of cigarettes would revert back to smoking cigarettes, which are far more deadly than combustible cigarettes, as has been shown by the UK's Royal College of Physicians and Public Health England, which promotes e-cigarettes as a form of smoking cessation, including e-cigarette shops in some UK hospitals. And while prohibiting flavors may seem an attractive proposition to the problem of youth vaping, it should be noted that youth vaping is at its lowest point in 7 years and has fallen dramatically in the absence of prohibition. In fact, 89% of high schoolers are not using e-cigarettes at all, and 95% aren't using them frequently. And according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, flavors are not, in fact, the primary reason why youth initiate vaping. According to the CDC, the primary reasons are, quote, curiosity, followed by friend or family member use them. And this very much mimics the patterns we see with youth use of marijuana or alcohol. And in fact, when San Francisco banned the sale of all flavored tobacco in 2018, Yale University found that after the implementation of the ban, youth within the San Francisco area had higher odds of smoking than youth outside the San Francisco area. In fact, double the odds. But I will get into this much more in my written testimony, but will thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much, Guy. We also have Pedro Haro with the American Lung Association of Hawaii in offering comments.
Aloha, Chair Johansson, Vice Chair Kitagawa. Thank you so much for hearing us today, and thank you for always having students on your mind and student leaders and moving this agenda item forward. We are offering comments. We have changed our support to comments only. We do not support the current legislation as written. The Centers for Disease Control publishes a book that are best practices for tobacco control, which includes policies that communities are asked to enact in order to be able to reduce tobacco use. The amendments don't follow the best practices as described by CDC. In fact, the original bill in its form did follow best practices and did follow what other legislators and other lawmakers have followed. So, while we appreciate that that lawmakers are trying to think of innovative ways to be able to curb the epidemic of youth smoking in Hawaii, which is in fact much higher than previous testimony that was provided here in Hawaii. We cannot support this bill in its current form and ask for you to please amend the current bill to its original form. Thank you very much. I'll be available for questions.
Thank you very much, Pedro. Do we have Myung Oh with the Hawaii Petroleum Marketers Association? No, we do not. They offer comments. Cynthia Au, American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, offering comments.
Thank you, Chair Johansson, Vice Chair Kitagawa, and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on House Bill 1570 HD1. Cynthia, on behalf of the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, tobacco use remains the leading preventable cause of death nationwide, and ACSCAN supports any and all efforts to invest in comprehensive policies that would strengthen the health infrastructure in Hawaii to prevent kids from starting to use tobacco and to help adults already addicted to tobacco to quit. I want to correct for the record an error in my written testimony requiring the resources of the Department of Health to test products for flavoring in tobacco products or synthetic nicotine products will not be a good use of tobacco control resources. Accidentally missed the not. The state should require the manufacturer of the product to be responsible for reporting requirements. No other state in the nation requires the resources of their Department of Health to test products for flavors. If the state of Hawaii is serious about protecting the keiki and to implement consumer protection from online sales, a better method would be to require all tobacco retailers selling in Hawaii to be licensed and prohibit delivery directly to consumers and require consumers to pick up deliveries at licensed brick and mortar retailers. In addition, all tobacco products, including e-cigarettes, should be taxed at a rate parallel to the tax on cigarettes and other tobacco products. Tracking the tax revenue would be a more reliable way than simply monitoring online sales. And having the ability to revoke the licenses of bad acting retailers would be a more effective way to hold retailers accountable than a simple fine. Also, we should focus on proven methods to reduce tobacco use. Limited resources should be invested in fact-based programs, and services to take back programs have not proven to be successful in decreasing e-cigarette consumption. Thank you so much for your time. I'm available for any questions. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. We also have Mandy Fernandez with the Hawaii Public Health Institute offering comments.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Amanda Fernandez on behalf of the Hawaii Public Health Institute, as well as the Coalition for a Tobacco-Free Hawaii. We do offer comments on HB 1570 HD1, and we do ask that it be restored to its original form. Comprehensive regulations on e-cigarettes are how we will stop the youth vaping epidemic in its tracks. Ending the sale of all flavored tobacco products is a key element of that. Nearly 1 in 3 high school students and nearly 1 in 5 middle schoolers report currently using e-cigarettes, and 8 out of 10 start with a flavored product, examples of which include POG, Mountain Dew, and strawberry bubblegum. And with respect to the previous testifier from the Reason Foundation, he was citing national data. Our testimony reflects the most recently available Hawaii-specific data. We should pass laws here that reflect the specific needs of our state. Regarding the amendments mentioned by other testifiers that were made in the prior committee, we've expressed our concerns in our written testimony. Our main concern is that given what was expressed by the agencies, we feel that these amendments are unnecessary, are untested, unvetted by the experts and the advocates that have been working on this for decades, and may cause dangerous delays in the full implementation of the law, which could compromise health. As of January 2022, at least 7 states and 335 localities in the US have passed restrictions on the sale of flavored tobacco. We are unaware of any jurisdiction that enforces its law restricting flavored tobacco sales in a manner that resembles that which would be required by this version of the bill. We encourage the committee to return the bill to its original form, which we do believe offers that right balance of enforcement and feasibility. I wanted to highlight other portions of our written testimony, if I can. There was a 2021 analysis of the projected fiscal and health outcomes from a flavored tobacco ban in Hawaii, and it projected significant cost savings as well as lives saved. Those numbers can be found in more detail in our written testimony. I also wanted to flag that e-cigarettes are not FDA-approved cessation products or modified risk products, and no retailer can legally make claims that e-cigarettes can help users quit smoking or that they are any healthier than combustible cigarettes. In fact, one study found that for every 1 adult that quit smoking combustible cigarettes using e-cigarettes, 81 youth and young adults who would not have considered smoking combustible cigarettes will become combustible cigarette smokers, and they start with e-cigarettes. Thousands of people have been hospitalized and many have died from infections related to e-cigarette use. We hope you consider these comments as you review this measure. We're available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Next, we have Suzanne Kaulia in support.
Aloha, Chair Yamane, Chair Tam, and members of the Health Committee on Health and Human Services and Homelessness. My name is Suzanne Kupo Mailani Kaulia. I stand in strong support I stand by my written testimony in strong support of the HB 1570 HD1 in its original form relating to the youth vaping epidemic. I come to you today to ask on behalf of my Keiki and unborn Mo'opuna to please stop the spread of youth vaping. I have personally heard vapors say vaping is healthier than smoking cigarettes. They use that line as a sad excuse to inhale these beautifully smelling synthetic chemicals into their lungs. I've done some research and learned that this industry markets all kinds of flavors, including strawberry, lilikoi, lychee, mango, mint, and even cotton candy. It's trickery to mislead these young developing youth into thinking that any type of harmful chemical inhalation into their lungs is good for their health and well-being. According to a Hawaii.gov informational website, it shared that research shows that more than 60 chemicals are inhaled in a single vape hit. These chemicals include formaldehyde, nickel, heavy metals, arsenic, benzene, and even lead. I do not want that for any of my children or my unborn grandchildren. I do not want them to get tricked and brainwashed into thinking that vaping is good for them. In my opinion, these tobacco, e-cigarette, and nicotine companies should be held responsible for the death of underage consumers of their product, because these evil money-hungry companies are more concerned with pushing and selling their product than who it is negatively affecting. So I humbly ask for your support for HB 1571 HD1 in its original form. Mahalo for lending your ears, your hearts, and your time, and also for this opportunity to voice my concern, to share my perspective, and to advocate for our keiki and future generations of Hawaii Nui Akea. I'm available for questions. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Do we have Austin Tucker in support? No. How about Richard Marianos in opposition?
Thank you, committee, very much for your time. Real quick on something that hasn't been touched. I'm a retired assistant director with ATF and currently a professor at Georgetown University. I adamantly oppose some of these increases in taxes and flavor bans due to the fact that it creates crime. And I want the members and also the citizens on this call and part of this hearing to understand what we don't want to do is create an environment where it's easier for our young adults to get vape products or tobacco products out on the street. What we're finding across the country is these higher taxes and these flavor bans are creating an environment where the black market is flourishing, where counterfeit products and things that are being sold on the internet are getting on the streets. There's no age restrictions. There's no identification checks. And what happens are these young adults and these kids are getting these products and getting it much easier than ever before. Also, what we're finding in many cities is smash and grabs in convenience stores where people are going after just the tobacco products because they can sell them on the street much easier without, again, the same situations of checking identifications and the protections given by the convenience store personnel. We're finding in many states, gangs, organized crime getting involved in this black market tobacco sales. And what we definitely don't want to see is we mentioned how important police reform is right now to have our officers having to concentrate on low-level tobacco violations when they need to be working with the community much better in solving crimes and solving problems. And when we start looking at the issue, it's some states are losing $2 billion a year in revenue because of the black market. And we just don't want to see that in Hawaii or anywhere else in our nation. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be honored to answer them. But I just want you to take into consideration that, when we look at these bills, we have to understand that prohibitions and huge increases many times, and we have evidence to show it gets brought on the street and our young adults have better access to these things. And we lose any form of our tobacco harm reduction strategy and keeping it out of the hands of the kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richard. We'll go back. Do we have the Americans for Tax Reform in opposition? We have them present, I'm told. Go ahead, Benjamin.
Yep. Thank you. Just thank you so much for understanding. Just want to testify in opposition to this bill. The evidence demonstrates that that flavored products are critical to helping adult smokers make the switch to vaping. Adults who use flavored vape products are 43% more likely to quit smoking than adults who use unflavored products. And further on, bans on flavored products are actually shown to increase youth cigarette smoking. A study from Dr. Friedman from the Yale School of Public Health found that youth smoking doubled when San Francisco imposed a flavor ban in 2018. And yeah, I think that's largely the point, is that these bans actually do the opposite of what they're intended to, and as such, we urge you to oppose.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. We also have Scott Rasak in opposition.
Yes, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee.
Please go ahead.
Thank you for this opportunity to testify. My name is Scott Rasak. I'm the COO of Volcano Vape Shops. We're a retail chain here in the state of Hawaii. While we stand in overwhelming support of the harsh restrictions, measures, and laws to restrict use of vapor products among youth, the suggestions put forth of flavor prohibition sales have not and will not yield the results that lawmakers are proposing. We stand in opposition of HB 1570. I'd like to point out in my testimony a few specific instances of flavor prohibitions, San Francisco namely, that has been discussed in other testimonies, as well as other states throughout the nation, to reference those and to really take a look at some of the metrics there. We represent not only our retail partners, but also the thousands of Hawaii legal adult vapers who buy these products legally every day. So thank you for the opportunity to testify, and we're here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott. We also have Julian Lipscher offering comments.
Yes, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Julian Lipscher, testifying as an individual providing comments. You have my testimony, and if I may provide some highlights. So despite decades of progress in tobacco control, Hawaii and the nation still are confronted with smoking and tobacco use being the leading cause of death and disease. Hawaii has some of the strictest and most comprehensive protections regarding exposure to secondhand smoke and sale of traditional tobacco products. Yet currently, the practice of vaping, most often with flavored products, has resulted in significant rates of delivery of nicotine to our youth, potentially addicting a new generation of smokers. The original purpose and intent of the bill was to address the epidemic of vaping among our youth through the removal of flavored products. The bill, as amended, removes the preamble that provides a clear public health rationale and adds amendments that are not based on clear public health practice, and which the testimony by the departments of the Attorney General, Health, and Education conclude that they're not based on proven and effective methods, nor are able to be implemented. Going forward, it would be best to return the language of the bill to its original form. As the tobacco industry has attempted more than a decade before, they have again introduced flavored products to entice our youth. Hawaii's middle and high school students report vaping rates above national average. Ending the sale of flavored tobacco products is a matter of health equity. The industry has long marketed menthol flavored products to low-income communities, especially people of color. According to Hawaii data, 78% of Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders use menthol flavoring. If our objective is to protect Hawaii's children and reverse the current trends in youth vaping, we need to eliminate flavored tobacco products, including menthol. Kindly consider returning the bill to its original form. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify on this measure.
Thank you very much, Julian. We also have Zoe Duan offering comments.
Okay. Aloha, members of the House Committee on Consumer Protection and Commerce. I'm Zoe, a local youth from Liuanu and Waiimpa, and I'd like to provide comments on the recent amendments that have been added to HB 1570. As per my written testimony, I strongly support the original version of the bill, but oppose the recent amendments. The amendments are not necessary, nor are they related to ending the sale of flavored tobacco products. The testing requirements outlined in the amendments are unwarranted. No other state has implemented a flavor bill, a flavor ban that has testing requirements like those in the amendments. By creating these extra requirements, the amendments detract from the main intent of the bill and instead create a burden for other agencies, so much so that they would be forced to pull their support from the bill. Additionally, to address some of the issues that were brought up previously in the hearing, I'd like to echo some of the statistics that were already mentioned. Knowing that for every one adult who uses e-cigarettes to quit smoking, 81 young people will become a smoker. This is an unacceptable trade-off. Saving kids' lives should be our greatest priority. Furthermore, flavors are the greatest concerns that draw youth into the cycle of addiction. The curiosity that was previously quoted as the biggest source of attraction is precisely due to the fact that there are so many different flavors that kids are curious about what these vaping flavors taste and feel like. Implementing a flavor ban is the simplest and most straightforward way to address the root cause of the youth vaping epidemic. Lastly, as a youth who has been actively involved in advocacy for a flavor ban for the past 4 years, it is disheartening to see that when we are told our voices matter, but our voices are wrongfully manipulated and twisted in practice. During the last hearing of the bill, my friends testified solely for the ending of flavored tobacco sales without any amendments to the original language of the bill, but was misrepresented when the bill was amended with new requirements. I hope to see our youth voices being heard in its full authenticity. So I urge for the removal of the new amendments to bring back the bill to what us youth have been fighting for all along. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Zoe. We also have, do we have comments from Shelley Ogata? No, we do not. She offered comments. We have late testimony from Michael Madden in opposition.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Michael Madden. I'm a family doctor and former chief medical officer of a multi-state managed Medicaid company. I've worked extensively on issues such as opioid addiction, HIV, and smoking. While Reynolds has compensated me for my time in preparing this testimony, let me be clear, the opinions expressed are my own. I speak in opposition to the portions of HB 1570 that would ban the sale of flavored tobacco products, and I urge you to consider the public health need to balance limiting youth access to tobacco products with the enormous opportunity non-combustible tobacco products present for tobacco harm reduction. Smokers die prematurely not because they consume nicotine, which is not a carcinogen, but because of how they consume it in a combustible form. Snuff users experience significantly lower risk of disease than smokers, and leading health authorities have agreed that vapor products may substantially reduce smoking's harm. Industry data show that 66% of adult moist snuff users and 53% of adults who make the switch to vapor products from combustibles choose non-tobacco flavored products. This bill would deny Hawaii residents access to tobacco products authorized for marketing as modified risk tobacco products. Fully half of those products approved by the FDA through that MRTP process are deemed appropriate for the protection of public health, and they are mint or menthol products. This bill would prohibit their sale. Youth should not use tobacco products of any kind. The state and federal laws banning the sale of tobacco products to those under 21 are the proper tools to address youth access. Enforce them aggressively. CDC data collected in 2021, not the old data cited by others presenting, suggest that these laws are working. Youth experimentation with vapor products has dropped more than 60% in the last 2 years to only 11% of high school seniors. And youth smoking rates are at the lowest levels ever at only 2% of seniors, high school seniors smoking daily. References for these data are in my written testimony. True tobacco harm reduction requires a broad array of non-combustible tobacco products be accessible and appealing to adult smokers. There is no data that flavor bans reduce youth vaping. I urge you to reject this proposal that would limit adult smokers in Hawaii. I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Madden. We also have Peggy Mirza with Aloha Care in support.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Peggy Mearsville with Aloha Care. Thank you for hearing this measure. We submitted testimony in support. I want to make it clear that we support the intent of the bill to ban vaping products, and we would ask you to consider reinstating the original language of the measure. We feel that the amendments that have been made don't help to protect the health of Hawaii residents and especially our youth. So thank you so much for considering this measure, and we'll be here for any questions.
Thank you very much, Peggy. Do we have Tina Yamaki with the Retail Merchants of Hawaii offering late testimony in opposition? We do not. Joshua Ching, Coalition for a Tobacco-Free Hawaii Youth Council, in support.
Aloha Chair Johansson, Vice Chair Kitagawa, and members of the House Committee on Consumer Protection and Commerce. On behalf of the Coalition for Tobacco-Free Hawaii's Youth Council, we are providing comments on HB 1570 HD1. We strongly support the original version of this bill, but question the amendments that have been added. The amendments are unnecessary at best, do nothing to protect Hawaii youth from predatory targeting by the tobacco industry, and place requirements on multiple departments that none of the 5 states or more than 300 other jurisdictions have included in their flavor bans. Since the preamble also has been removed, we feel it is important that we reiterate the Youth Council's original objective of this bill to address Hawaii's youth vaping epidemic. In 2019, the most recent data from Hawaii available, 1 in 3 high school students and 1 in 5 middle school students report current use of e-cigarettes. But beyond numbers, countless students from across the state and nation have chronicled their experiences with e-cigarettes, whether watching their friends fall victim to the predatory marketing of the industry, seeing their school bathrooms cloud with smoke, or even reporting the struggle of recovering from nicotine addiction themselves. Students today are under siege by an industry that profits off of our addiction. The primary driver of the vaping epidemic is through the creation and marketing of flavored products. 81% of youth who have ever used tobacco started with a flavored product, while 97% of youth who vape say they use a flavored product. It comes as no surprise. Over the past several years, the market for flavored tobacco products has exploded with over 15,500, mostly candy and fruity flavors. These have done a number in enticing youth into using tobacco, and the industry no less has taken to weaponizing our local food and cultures as well, with flavors like Pog, Mauna Dew, and Hawaiian Sweet Roll lining shelves. Menthol in particular is one of the most popular flavors among teens and is the primary product used in predatory marketing against youth and vulnerable communities. The industry considers Hawaii a menthol state. Banning the sale of all flavored tobacco products would work to end this deadly cycle of addiction and manipulation. In doing so, retailers would no longer have the ability to sell products that have been the primary catalyst for addicting a new generation of people. We strongly urge that the amendments to HB 1570 be removed and the original language of the bill be restored. It's time to put people over the profits of big tobacco. It's time to protect our keiki. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Joshua. Do we have Lauren Zerbel with the Hawaii Food Industry Association? We do not. They offer comments. I think that's the extent of testifiers who have indicated that they would be offering virtual testimony on HB 1570. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony on HB 1570 who submitted testimony and I haven't called? Okay, it looks like there are no further testifiers on HB 1570. We'll transition into our legislative member question period. Members of the legislature, any questions on HB 1570? Representative Kong.
Thank you, Chair. Department of Health. Hi, Lola. Regardless of which bill, in a sense, the original 1570 or the amended bill, when we're considering and we're focusing on vaping, is also other tobacco products, as you read it, involved, such as cigar and pipe tobaccos. Would they be included in this bill as you read it?
In its original format, yes. Flavored tobacco products.
Period.
Period, yes.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Lola.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Kong. Members, any additional questions on HB 1570? Okay. Seeing no questions then, before I move on, I just would like to thank everyone. This bill clearly has testifiers who are in different time zones across our country, as well as a span of ages that I think attest to vibrant democracy. So I want to thank our students along with everyone else who's testified. Clearly, there's a lot of interest in this bill, and just want to thank you all before we transition back into the rest of our agenda. For those who are in their first time joining us in CPC, we'll go through all of the measures in this similar fashion, and then we'll do decision making at the end of the agenda. So thank you, members, for your indulgence in skipping around. We'll return to the normal course of our agenda and begin with HB 2111 relating to insurance. This amends various portions of Title 24 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes to update and improve existing provisions. On HB 2111, we have Insurance Commissioner Colin Hayashida with the Insurance Division in support.
Good afternoon, Chair Johansson, Vice Chair Kitagawa, members of the committee. Colin Hayashida, Insurance Commissioner for the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. The department stands on its written testimony in support of this administration bill, and we respectfully request an amendment to Section 4 and the effective date in Section 8. I thank you, Chair, and I'll be available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. We also have Cynthia Takenaka with NIFA Hawaii in support.
Aloha, Chair Johansson, Vice Chair. Kitagawa.
Cynthia, we can hear you, but it's very faint. So I just wanted to.
Got my microphone away.
There we go.
Good afternoon, Chair Johansson, Vice Chair Kitagawa, and members of the committee. We are in support of Section 6 of this bill. I haven't seen the commissioner's amendments, but I am pretty certain that we probably in agreement with that. We do agree with ACLI's amendments in terms of the date, the effective dates. Our organization has been working all across the country to get this measure passed. And this best interest standard of care is for the consumers, and their financial interest comes first. And it also aligns well with the federal Securities and Exchange Regulation best interest. 19 states have already adopted the language, and another 12 is currently working on it. So we ask for your support of this measure. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. We also have Oren Chikimoto with the American Council of Life Insurers in support. Oren, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. We can see you though. We still can't hear you, Oren. We can see your lips moving, but can't hear you. Still no sound. Oren, you might want to try logging off and logging back on because muting and unmuting doesn't seem to be changing your volume. Members, for the record, the American Council of Life Insurers is in support, and they also offer amendments in the written testimony that you're in receipt of. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Oh, members, please note that there are numerous other testimonies. There are several other testimonies offering comments or support on this measure, in addition to who we've called. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in HB 2111? You want to try one more time, Oren? Okay, unfortunately, we still can't hear you, Oren. Members, any questions on HB 2111? Okay, seeing no questions then, we'll move on to our next agenda item, HB 2112. HB 2112 is relating to credit for reinsurance, and this amends various sections of Article 4A of Chapter 431, Hawaii Revised Statutes, to maintain accreditation with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. On HB 2112, again, we have Insurance Commissioner Hayashida with DCCA in support.
Thank you, Chair Johansson. For the record, Colin Hayashida, Insurance Commissioner, Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. The department stands on its written testimony in support of this administration bill, and I'll be available for any question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We also have Oren Chikamoto, American Council of Life Insurers, in support. Sorry, we still can't hear you, Oren. Okay, for the record, members, the American Council of Life Insurers is also in support, and they propose amendments in their written testimony as well. We also have one additional testimony in support on HB 2112. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on HB 2112? Okay, seeing no further testifiers, members, any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, I have a quick one for the Insurance Commissioner.
Yes, Chair.
Thanks, Commissioner. I know it's cited in your written testimony, but I think for those watching, it's helpful. Is DCCA requesting amendments made to their administration bill on 2112?
Notice that. My apologies, Chair. The department is respectfully requesting amendments that are listed in our written testimony, and there are 4 of them.
Can you just quickly highlight them?
Okay. The first is an amendment to Section 2, adding that the Commissioner may adopt rules pursuant to Section 431 4A-104B. The second amendment is just, I believe, technical and adding an or and a Section F. The third amendment would be to read as follows: requirements subsection B, C, D, E, or F. This is also, I think, a technical amendment. And finally, adding pursuant to Section 431 4A 104B, specific additional requirements in that section 3, page 38, line 20.
Perfect. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? Okay, seeing no further questions then we'll move on to our next agenda item, HB 2114. This is relating to mortgage rescue fraud, and it amends the definitions of a distressed property consultant and mortgage assistance relief service in Section 480E2 Hawaii Revised Statutes. On HB 2114, we have James Evers with the Consumer Protection Division of DCCA in support.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone.
James, did you want to turn on your camera? There we go. Great.
Thank you. What we're dealing with here is a conflict created in 2010 when the federal government passed its Mars rule, which prohibited certain practices constituting mortgage rescue fraud. And under the Mars rule, 3 different exemptions existed for attorneys, for lenders, and servicers. However, the conflict was created because in 2008, the state had passed its own legislation in this area, and the state's version had many more exemptions. And because of the conflict with the federal law, the state exemptions no longer have any impact. They're essentially unenforceable, they're illusory, they offer nobody a defense when they're trying to defend an action under the Mars rule. So on behalf of the DCCA, we're supporting HB 2114. I am James Evers. I am an enforcement attorney with the Office of Consumer Protection, and I regularly have to enforce both the Mars rule and the state law. And I see firsthand, day in and day out, that those exemptions are entirely illusory, and I don't believe anybody will be adversely impacted merely by passage of this bill and allowing the state law to coincide with the federal law. And if there are any questions on that, I'll be happy to address them, but we do have extensive written testimony submitted where we cited different examples of professions that they are exempt under the state law, but the state exemption did not offer them any protection.
Thank you very much, James. Members, please note we also have testimony submitted in opposition and comments on HB 2114. On HB 2114, is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing no further testifiers, members, any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, then we'll move on to our next agenda item, HB 2115. This is relating to mortgage servicers, and it authorizes the Commissioner of Financial Institutions to modify or waive requirements in Chapter 454M to implement changes and improvements made to the NMLS. On HB 2115, we have our first and only testifier, Commissioner Ikeda with the Division of Financial Institutions, DCCA, and support.
Aloha. Thank you for hearing this administration bill. My name is Iris Ikeda. I am the Commissioner for the Division of Financial Institutions for the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. And as you said, the purpose of this bill is to allow the Commissioner to implement some modernization processes, efficiencies, and improvements that have been made to NMLS. So as you know, NMLS is the multi-state licensing platform used by nationwide regulators. So what we're asking for is some flexibility so that we can streamline our processes as the NMLS platform continues to evolve and streamline for our licensees. The current law is not flexible enough for us to allow for modernization streamlining for the licensing process. So we have one example that I cited in our testimony, which is surety bonds have been allowed to be submitted electronically, except in Hawaii. In Hawaii, you still have to send us the paper bond. And if there's a typo in it, we have to mail it back to the surety company, have the surety company make the change, and then mail it back to us. All of this, of course, takes several weeks to do with the snail mail. They cannot even submit it to us via email. So, that is just one of the ways that NMLS has streamlined the process for our applicants and licensees that we would like to implement. There are other examples, but that's really the one that takes the most time. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Members, again, please note that that's our sole testimony offered on HB 2115. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing no further testifiers, members, any questions on HB 2115? Okay, seeing no questions, then we will move on to our next agenda item. HB 1886, and this is relating to controlled substances. It bans hemp products that contain cannabinoids created through isomerization, including delta 8 tetrahydro it's been a long day. Cannabinol. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. And it adds that to the list of Schedule 1 controlled substances. On HB 1886, we have the Department of Health in support.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. My name is Greg Edwards with the Department of Health. Sorry, I need to start my video. Apologies. We stand on our written testimony in support. We'll be available for any questions.
Thank you very much. We also have Tate Nojima with the Honolulu Police Department. Captain Nojima.
Hello, my name is Tate Nojima. I'm the captain of the Narcotics Vice Division. HBD supports this bill, and I will stand on our written testimony, but I'm open to any questions.
Thank you very much, Captain Nojima. Members, please note we also have supportive testimony from an organization as well on this measure. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on HB 1886? Okay, seeing no further testifiers, members, any questions on the measure? Okay, seeing no questions, then we'll move on to our next agenda item, HB 2028, relating to raw milk. This authorizes and decriminalizes the direct sale of raw milk and raw milk products to consumers for human consumption with certain restrictions, and it authorizes the sale of raw goat milk for pet consumption, requires the Board of Agriculture and the Department of Health to adopt rules by a certain timeline, and establishes labeling requirements as well. On HB 2028, we have the Department of Agriculture in opposition.
Hello, Chair Johansson and committee members. Morris Sato on behalf of the Department of Health. We will stand on our written testimony in opposition. I have staff available to answer the questions as to the exact reasons if there are any questions from the members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Morris. We also have the Department of Health in opposition.
Hello, Chair Johansson, Vice Chair Kitagawa, members of the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection and Commerce. The department vigorously opposes this bill, obviously for public health reasons. We stand on a written testimony in opposition. I just want to make a real strong point that milk does not come from bottles and cartons. It comes from mammals, the lacteal secretion from the teats of mammals that lie in their own feces and urine. To think that drinking that has any health benefits at all is just a fallacy. So I will be available for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. We also have Jessica Rohr with Forage Hawaii in support.
Aloha, chairs of House Consumer Protection and Commerce Committee. My name is Jessica Rohr, testifying on behalf of myself and my business, Forage Hawaii. I support HB 2028 because of the impact on my community and local agriculture. My business, Forage Hawaii, sells local grass-fed and finished meats. I also hold a degree in nutrition from the University of Hawaii. I have customers asking me on a weekly basis where they can find raw milk. Many of my customers are looking for traditional foods they can trace back to a time when diet-related diseases were not an epidemic. Raw milk is one of those foods and maintains a high nutrient density and beneficial bacteria when not adulterated by heat. This bill, HB 2028, would open up a new revenue stream for local agriculture and small business. With more consumers looking for natural, direct from the source, real food, raw milk is an opportunity for small businesses and farmers to increase profitability, create jobs, and increase food security. No food, including milk, is completely safe. But looking at the statistics, you can see that raw milk is last on the list of foods creating foodborne illness. The CDC's latest annual data on foodborne illnesses from just 1 year was over 37 million cases, including 2,612 deaths. The CDC's data on foodborne illness associated with raw milk shows an average of 163 cases of foodborne illness and 12 hospitalizations per year and no deaths over the course of 6 years. Studied, the food causing the most significant sickness and death are not illegal, nor is alcohol a deadly poison. The illnesses associated with raw milk in the past had to do with unsanitary conditions, long transport, and lack of refrigeration. With today's technology and proper requirements, we can mitigate the past concerns of raw milk safety. I hope you will consider releasing this nutrient-dense food for the public, especially to people who consider raw milk a cultural food as I do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Do we have Hannah Urego in support? We do not. How about Victoria El-Sawafi in support? We do not. Late testimony from Lauren Zerbel, Hawaii Food Industry Association. In opposition. That's the extent of our testifiers who've indicated that they'd be testifying virtually on this measure, but member, please note, there are numerous other individuals testifying in support, as well as comments and opposition on this measure from organizations and agencies. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in HB 2028?
Yes,
Mr.
I would.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead. And real quickly before you start, is the committee in receipt of written testimony? Just to make sure that we process it correctly. If not, that's okay also.
It is.
Okay.
Excuse me. I will be sending it shortly after the hearing.
Okay, thank you. Then we can make sure it's appended to the testimony packet. Please proceed, Mr. Kennedy. Thank you.
Okay, sure. I'm an attorney with the Weston A. Price Foundation, an international nonprofit whose primary mission is to restore nutrient-dense foods to the American diet through research, education, and activism. WAPF has members in all 50 states, including Hawaii, and is the leading raw milk advocacy organization in the U.S. I've worked on legal issues governing raw milk for the past 19 years and have consulted on federal and state raw milk legislation and have drafted raw milk bills as well. I can tell you that this time the Hawaii law on raw milk is an outlier. There are 38 states that allow the sale or distribution of raw milk for human consumption. There are another 6 states where farmers can produce raw milk for pet consumption. And beyond that, I think it's something like either 48 or 49 states where there are national manufacturers producing raw milk for pet consumption. There are 2 or 3 national manufacturers that are currently marketing or have marketed in, I think, every state except right now it's Hawaii, Nevada, and maybe Alaska. So it's especially when there is an interstate ban on raw milk for human consumption, but there's never been a ban on raw milk for pet consumption. So Hawaii is definitely an outlier in this regard. These national manufacturers are regulated by FDA, in addition to being in compliance with the state law they are selling in. So, you know, it is capable to, raw milk safety has actually improved in recent years. The number of illnesses, at least according to one report, has gone down as the demand has gone up. I will send or see if Representative Nakashima's office can send a report of a Michigan work group on raw milk where regulators, academicians, raw milk consumers, and raw milk producers all produced a report on the safety and benefits of raw milk. So I urge you to join all the rest of the states that are making it available in raw milk consumption is legal in every state. And just in Hawaii, the people, unless they have the land or resources to own and board a cow on it, they have no way of exercising what is a legal right. So I urge you to pass HB 2028. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pete. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on HB 2028? Okay, seeing no further testifiers. Members, any questions on the measure? Representative Parr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Department of Health.
Hello, Representative Char.
Good afternoon, Mr. Oshiro. Thank you for being here and thank you for your testimony. I'm looking at the written testimony of the Department of Health as well as the Farm Bureau and other opponents of the measure. And it seems that under federal guidelines pursuant to the FDA and CDC, they have essentially prohibited the sale of raw milk because of all of the pathogens that are basically contained. You've heard the advocates, and I think that there are some also who seem to be supporting goat's milk, and I'm not familiar with this area. So if you could please just kind of educate me, because again, the proponents seem, it's dense, it's nutrient rich and all these kinds of things. And I'm just trying to understand why is it that some states have allowed it? And then there's a veterinarian who submitted testimony, and her testimony has a chart on it where the states that actually sell raw milk and that there's a direct correlation with all the outbreaks that were linked to raw milk. So, I mean, from the Department of Health standpoint, I'm sorry, can you just kind of educate me? I know I'm all over the place, but educate me with respect to, because the proponents seem to say that this is a safe, nutrient dense, milk.
Yeah, I think what's happening is this is just another case of people saying the same falsehoods over and over again until they start to believe it. And my data is not my opinion. I get everything from the FDA and CDC. And there's a very simple reason why the FDA banned interstate shipments of raw milk nationwide in 1987. That ban still goes on today because raw milk is no safer today than it was ever. So people still will get sick and die from drinking unpasteurized milk. And I don't understand why these advocates, other than a profit motive or a quote unquote belief that drinking these things are good, but there is no scientific evidence from the FDA, the CDC, the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, or any National Veterinarian Association. None of these science-based people would ever endorse ingesting raw milk in your body or your pets. People think it's safe for pets, but I think most people that have pets have children that interact with their pets and love to feed the pets. And that's the big danger of feeding raw milk to pets. The kids are not going to practice excellent hygiene and they may become infected, and thus they may infect the rest of the community as they go back to school the next day. So this is not a freedom bill that people put it across. It's a public health bill to prevent communicable disease transmission in our community. We don't need any more of that these days.
Okay, but some of the testimony in support, though, talked about other states actually allowing the sale and decriminalization of raw milk. So is that, again, I'm not familiar with other states and this topic, in fact. So is that
that is true. There's a pressure across the nation to deregulate every segment of society, including food. So what you're also going to see is food cottage bills, where people want to create restaurants in their own homes, thinking they can do that safely. And this is also going to the legislature right now. And all of these bills are based on quote unquote food freedom advocates that believe that the government should be getting out of their business when the business is actually to protect public health.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Oshiro. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Parr. Legislative members, are there any additional questions? Okay. If there are no questions from our legislative committee members, then we'll move on to our next agenda item. If you've joined us late in the hearing, members, we've already covered HB 1570 relating to vaping. Next, we'll move on to underground storage tanks with HB 2514. On HB 2514, 14, which would prohibit the operation of underground storage tanks with a capacity greater than 100,000 gallons. We have our first testifier, the Department of Health, in support.
Good afternoon, Chair Johansson, Vice Chair Kitagawa, and members of the Consumer Protection and Commerce Committee. My name is Joanna Sito, Chief of the Environmental Management Division. The Department of Health stands on our written testimony in support of the intent of House Bill 2514, House Draft 1. I'm available to answer questions after the testimony. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much, Joanna. We also have DLNR, Kaleo Manuel.
Hello, Chair. Hello, Chair, Vice Chairs, and committee members. Kaleo Manuel, Deputy with the Water Commission. We stand on our written testimony offering comments and are here for any questions. Mahalo.
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming Neil Fujii with DLNR is also with you.
Yes,
But-
here for
okay.
questions.
Okay, terrific. Do we have the Board of Water Supply? Hi, Ernie.
Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair and members. Ernie Lau, Manager and Chief Engineer for the Honolulu Board of Water Supply. We support the intent of this bill. We do offer that the effective date actually be January 1st, 2023. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Ernie. Do we have Dave Mullenix with our Revolution Hawaii in support? We do not. Amanda Fernandez, Hawaii Public Health Institute in support. I think she logged off. Susan Piccola Davis in support.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Susan. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Johansson and Vice Chair Kitagawa for allowing me to testify on this very important bill today. It was good to see you, Ernie. I support this bill. On January 31st, 2021, the Board of Water Supply formally requested that the Hawaii Department of Health revisit its environmental action levels, EALs, which you will hear a lot about with those acronyms. They are the total petroleum hydrocarbon middle distillate fraction. This request, and it's about the diesel in the fuel. This request referred to the Department of Health's raising the allowable micrograms per liter from its earlier level. Currently, it is 211 micrograms per liter, which Ernie can correct me as the continued testing goes on in the Red Hill underground storage tank fuel leak. In November 2017, the Department of Health increased the TPHD water health-based EAL from 160 to 400 and increased its TPHD based in odor EAL from 100 to 500. The Department of Health is now using a more conservative EAL of 200. However, recently was increased to 211, of which created mistrust by the tenants of the units. Whether or not it is true, it appeared that raising the number to 211 would eliminate any samples that were between 200 and 210. I just wonder why anyone on this committee would accept as an amount of parts per billion of jet fuel, JP5 or JP8, that they would accept in their water. The Red Hill tanks also contained marine fuel. So I agree with the context of the bill. I just wanted to put a little bit of background in there regarding the EALs because the measures are very important to know whether you can actually smell and taste the diesel. And evidently the tenants could. So like I said, I strongly support it and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Susan. Do we have Peter Coolidge in support? We do not. How about Matthew Geyer in support? We do not. Members, please note that we have numerous other additional testimonies proffered in support, both on time and late for this measure from individuals and organizations. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in HB 2514? Okay, seeing no further testifiers, members, any questions on HB 2514? Okay, seeing no further seeing no questions, then we'll move on to our next agenda item, HB 2274. HB 2274, we have the Department of Health in support.
Good afternoon, Chair Johansson, Vice Chair Kitagawa, and members of the Consumer Protection and Commerce Committee. My name is Joanna Cito, Chief of the Environmental Management Division. The Department of Health stands on our written testimony in support of House Bill 2274, House Draft 1, with offered amendments. I'm available to answer any questions, and thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much, Joanna. We also have Kaleo Manuel with DLNR in support.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. Kaleo Manuel, Deputy with the Water Commission. We stand on our written testimony in support and offer comments here for questions. Neil Fuji is with us as well.
Thank you very much. We also have the Board of Water Supply in opposition.
Yes, Ernie Lau, Manager and Chief Engineer for the Board of Water Supply. We do not support this measure. We offer the following comments. The January 1st, 2045 date is really not acceptable. An existing large facility that already is in place that has leaked would then be about 102 years old by that time. We think that is not right. We also say that the reference to the UIC line in this measure should refer to reference HRS chapter 340E, where the authorization for the UIC line exists. So those are our comments. We stand in opposition to this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have Hawaii State Teachers Association in support.
Hi, aloha. Chair Johansson, Mitsuhiga, speaking for Osatui Jr. of Hawaii State Teachers Association. I'm just making sure you can see me and everything. Okay, sorry.
You can. Yes.
Okay. We stand in support, but the points that the Board of Water Supply brought up are we actually want it done sooner. Our board of directors and many of our members, as you know, the last 2 years have already been hard on our teachers, our students, their families, and our community. And this Red Hill catastrophe has just made it worse. We ask for your support, whatever you have to do. We need to shut down Red Hill. We need to not allow these tanks any longer to be underground and over aquifers. So whatever you can do, and please listen to the Board of Water Supply about an earlier date. We totally agree with that. And thank you so much for your support and all you're doing.
Thank you very much, Mitzi. Let's see. We also have Susan Picola Davis in support.
Hello. I have a comment on this bill, and I also support everything that the previous testifier, HSTA, I didn't catch your name, and Ernie Lau's testimony that this has to be sooner. I believe the permit that allowed this facility to operate was flawed, but hindsight is 2020. Let's get ahead of this to prevent any future problems, one step at a time. I do believe the state was warned years ago. Our current threat is that the tanks still contain fuel and the fire suppression system could be compromised. On a side note, it has been heard that Maisie Hirono has been speaking with tenants of the homes with the contaminated water. As she spoke with Zeke Corcoran, Ms. Hirono said there'd be people coming out of the woodwork complaining of ailments and how they need to distinguish between who is affected by the water and who merely think they're affected, as though people are faking their systems. I feel this is important for you to hear. Ms. Hirono stated, "You'll get your money back, you'll get your payout." Izzy said she was brushed off when trying to tell her it was about their health and their family pet's health. Her aide told Izzy, "We are having trouble finding any of the affected families." So again, I support Mr. Lau's concerns about the dates. And I just feel that adding some of the information from tenants help you understand, even though I'm sure you do. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Susan. Let's see. Members, I believe that's all the individuals who have indicated that they would be testifying virtually on HB 2274. Please note that we have numerous individual and organizational testimonies in support, as well as providing comments. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in HB 2274? Okay, seeing no further testifiers, members, any questions? Okay, seeing no questions, then we'll move on to our last agenda item. It's HB 1988 relating to coral, and it prohibits the sale, import, or export of coral products with certain exceptions. It requires DLNR to amend its administrative rules accordingly by a certain date. On HB 1988, we have Department of Land and Natural Resources offering comments. Do we have a Brian Nielsen or David Sakota from DLNR? No. Okay, I guess we have no one from DLNR here offering comments. Next, we have Inga Gibson for the fishes in support.
Aloha, Chair. Vice Chair Kitagawa, thank you for the opportunity for the fishes dedicated to the protection of coral reef wildlife. We'd really like to fully support this measure. Unfortunately, in the prior committee, it appears that Hawaii sourced corals and coral jewelry are actually exempt in the current version. We believe that's contrary to the intent of the measure, which is to protect global coral reefs, including our very own, that are subject to climate change, coral bleaching, and degradation. I've discussed this issue at length with NOAA, who issues the federal permits. And currently there are only a few permittees. And just so the committee knows, when there are fewer than 3 permittees harvesting the coral that ends up being sold here in Hawaii and elsewhere that is sourced from Hawaii, they actually don't report the catch levels, the take levels, because that's deemed confidential, similar to aquarium collectors. The take essentially is not disclosed. It's our understanding from NOAA that there are actually stockpiles of black coral that have been collected, some from many years ago, that are then entered as consumer demand requires for black coral trinkets and other jewelry. So, to us, it's exempting the harvesting and sale of our own coral would be similar to saying, you can't sell the fins of sharks from sharks outside of Hawaii, but we can sell the fins of sharks or the fin soup as long as they're from Hawaii. So we would like the consideration of an amendment that we put in our testimony that is echoed in many others. And also we appreciate that there are a couple businesses that this is kind of been their forte and specializing in the sale of this coral. And just like with our shark fin bill and our ivory bills, we would not object to an extended effective date to allow these businesses to sell their existing inventory or stock. And just in closing, Chair, looking at DLNR's testimony, it was interesting that they stated that poaching of coral is really unknown. And this is a prime example of our need to exercise the precautionary principle in protecting our coral reefs, protecting coral reefs around the world, but most especially our very own. So mahalo, support with amendments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Inga. I believe that's all the testifiers indicating that they would be virtually present today. Members, please note that we have comments, support, and opposition also proffered on HB 1988. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on HB 1988? Okay, seeing no further testifiers, members, any questions? Okay, seeing no questions, then we'll recess for decision making. Recess. thank you, members, and thank you, members of the public, for sticking with us, reconvening the 2 p.m. CPC agenda for decision-making. On HB 2111 relating to insurance, the recommendation here is going to be to adopt the insurance commissioner's amendments, including the effective date language. However, I am deliberately going to insert a defective date of January 1, 2050 to ensure that, since this is a single referral, that we will still have to come back in conference and refine this should it pass. In addition to that, I would like to insert various technical and non-substantive amendments. Members, any comments or questions on the recommendation? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Vice Chair, for the vote, please.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass HB 2111 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Aquino.
Aye.
Representative Hart.
Aye.
Representative Hashem. Representative Kong.
Aye.
Representative Mizuno.
Aye.
Representative Morikawa.
Aye.
Representative Onishi. Representative Tarnas.
Aye.
Representative Matsumoto.
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Thank you, members. Next on HB 2112 relating to credit for reinsurance to promote NAIC conformity. The recommendation here is going to be to also adopt the insurance commissioner's amendments on his bill, inserting a defective date of January 1, 2050, as well as making technical and non-substantive amendments. Members, any comments or questions on the recommendation? Okay, if not, seeing none, Vice Chair, for the vote, please.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass HB 2112 with amendments. Noting the presence of all members, are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next on HB 2114 relating to mortgage rescue fraud. The recommendation here is going to be to insert a defective date of January 1, 2050, as well as make various technical and non-substantive amendments. Members, any comments or questions on the recommendation? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, for the vote, please.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass HB 2114 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next, members, on HB 2115 relating to mortgage servicers. The recommendation here also is going to be to deliberately insert a defective date, so it ensures that we have to continue to discuss this measure since it only has a CPC referral. Recommendation here is to insert a defective date of January 1, 2050. Members, any comments or questions on the recommendation? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, Vice Chair, for the vote, please.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass HB 2115 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next, members, on HB 1886 relating to controlled substances. The recommendation is to pass this measure as is. Any comments or questions on the recommendation? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, for the vote, please.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass HB 1886 HD1 as is. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next, on HB 2028 relating to raw milk. I acknowledge the concerns here, but it's an interesting bill that I'd like to continue to have discussion on and debate on. I'm sure will definitely ensue. So the recommendation here is to pass this measure, but insert a defective date deliberately to ensure that further debate needs to occur. The defective date of January 1, 2050. Members, any comments or questions on the recommendation?
Chair?
Representative Onishi.
Yeah, I have problems with this bill and cannot support it, so I'll be voting.
I completely understand. Thank you, Representative. Representative Har.
Thank you very much for the recommendation, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm not really familiar with the subject matter, so thank you for hearing this measure. Respectfully, Mr. Chairman, I really do think this is an issue for health and safety, and respectfully, I'll be voting in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Har. Representative Kong.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, same request. I will also be voting no. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Representative. Representative Tarnas.
Thank you. Because of the public health concerns as expressed by the Department of Health, I really cannot support the bill. I'll be voting no.
Okay, thank you, Representative. Members, any other comments or questions?
Chair.
Representative Morikawa.
Thank you, Chair.
although there are concerns about the health issues on this, when I was a little child, because my family was poor, raw milk was all that I could drink. So that's why I have a hard time with this, but I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote, please.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass HB 2028 HD1 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Noting the noes from Representative Har, Kong, Onishi, and Tarnas, are there any additional noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. Next on HB 1570, relating to the youth vaping epidemic, I think there are numerous very legitimate concerns that have been teased out in our hearing and debate today. And I will note those concerns in the committee report, but I do believe, considering the epidemic proportions, the epidemic levels that youth vaping is occurring in Hawaii, I do want to keep a vehicle moving, irrespective of whether or not everyone is settled on the contents of the vehicle. So I would like to keep HB 1570 moving as a vehicle to continue to keep up the discussion and needed pressure to address this epidemic. So the recommendation here is to pass HB 1570 as is. Members, any comments or questions on the recommendation? Representative Tarnas.
Yes, I'd much prefer the first version of the bill. I think there was a number of, albeit perhaps well-intentioned, but unnecessary amendments made in the HD1. So I'll support with reservations with the hope that we can get the bill back to its original form. So those are my comments. Thanks very much.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly understand and echo those comments as well, personally. Members, any other comments or questions on the recommendation?
Chair, this is Rep. Kong.
Representative Kong.
Yes, Chair. Regardless of which version, be it the original or an amended version, I wish that one day we'll have a bill focused directly just on vaping. Apparently, with the Department of Health's testimony, this also includes other tobacco products, be it cigar or pipe tobacco. So I'll be respectfully voting no on this bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Representative Kong. Members, any other comments or questions? Representative Har.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to support the chair's recommendation because I agree we need to have a vehicle that continues to move. My concerns really do stem from the unconstitutionality that was raised by the Attorney General's office with respect to the amendments and the title issues, the title defects. And so I recognize this is not the Committee on Judiciary. I'm still going to support the chair's recommendation. I'm not even going to go with reservations, just recognizing though that the bill currently with the amendments that is in fact unconstitutional. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Har. I also echo those concerns and feel like they are legitimate items that need to be addressed in conference as well. Thank you. Members, any other comments or questions on the recommendation? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote then.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass HB 1570 HD1 as is. Noting the reservation of Representative Tarnas, are there any additional reservations? Reservations by Representative Onishi. Any additional? Okay. Noting the no vote of Representative Kong, any additional no votes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next, members, on HB 2514 relating to underground storage tanks, the recommendation is to pass this measure as is. Members, any comments or questions on the recommendation? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote, please.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass HB 2514 HD1 as is. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next, members, on HB 2274 relating to underground fuel storage tanks, I do want to thank the prior joint committees for their work. They've substantially amended this. I think the position of a vast number of House members is fairly clear on Red Hill and some of the issues posed by the underground fuel storage tanks there. I do want to also, in the vein of keeping an additional vehicle alive with respect to how to approach not just Red Hill, but large underground fuel storage tanks, I would like to keep this alive. So I certainly acknowledge the Board of Water Supply's concern that the time of the horizon is too long. And I don't necessarily know that 2045 is an ideal date. So the date could change, but I would like to keep the vehicle alive. So the recommendation here is just going to be to pass HB 2274 with various technical and non-substantive amendments. Members, any comments or questions on the recommendation? Representative Tarnas.
Thank you. I'll go with reservations and support you with reservations. And my reservations are the date. I think it needs to be sooner, but also I'm persuaded by the testimony from DLNR that it's not just the area Mauka, but it should the area Makai as well that should be included, because there are potential public trust resources that could be affected by contamination there. And then finally, I am also persuaded by the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development testimony saying this first time it's defined Mauka in HRS, and they suggested that we need to look carefully at that and perhaps use a different definition. If we're going to use a definition, they had a suggestion. So we can deal with this later, but I just wanted to note my reservations, but I'll support you to move it forward because it is an important issue. Thank you.
Thank you. I also agree on those points, but as on other measures, I do not have prior concurrence to make all of those amendments to the work done by the prior chairs.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other comments or questions on the recommendation? Okay, seeing none then, thank you, Vice Chair, for the vote.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass HB 2274 HD1 with amendments, noting the reservations of Representative Tarnas. Are there any additional reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next and lastly, members, on HB 1988 relating to coral, the recommendation here is just going to be to pass with some simple technical and non-substantive amendments. Members, any comments or questions on the recommendation? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote then.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass HB 1988 HD1 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Thank you very much, members. With that, this committee meeting is adjourned.